Hello, this is Kara from Lady Kara Tarot, and today I'm doing a full frontal video. I don't usually do face to the camera videos, and because this is mostly chat, I thought I would just lounge up here on my daybed, and I'm afraid it's looking a little too much like 1970s porn. But with my bad knee, it took me so long to get back in the corner of the bed, I'm going to stay here anyway. So I'm answering a hashtag to Imogen from Sapling Tarot about hashtag having the tarot deck collection. And I thought the questions were so, just had an unusual slant to them that we don't always discuss. And I thought it was interesting to discuss. And so here I am lounging on my bed, baby. And the video by Julie at Peekaboo Rose is the one that how I discovered this hashtag, and then I went to Imogen's site to find it. So there are 14 questions. I'll try not to be too long-winded and not go too far afield. So hashtag having a tarot deck collection, a rumination. Number one, how long have you been collecting decks? I would have to say I've only been collecting decks 2 years, which would explain why I have to schedule my decks to work with them. As I said before, I got my first deck in elementary school, and then for the vast majority of my life, even up until 2010, I only had one deck. At some point after that, I got 2 more, and then that was it again for a period of time. And then 2 years ago, well, when I started doing the caregiving and I hurt my arm and I couldn't do as much performing, I found Tarot Tube and the gates opened. In an embarrassing way. Embarrassing but fortunate way. The second question, what kind of collection do you have? As I recently said, sublime and ridiculous. And I think that encapsulates it. Number 3, are you a completionist? Not at all. Not at all. I have had, as a musician, I had aspirations to being a completionist, like to work on the entire set of these pieces by list. And one of the reasons that I had that concept in my mind is because I knew from having been a classical music radio host that the record companies, or CD companies now, have been for some time requiring that you record the entire set of works. They don't want to hear isolated pieces. Like if it's a set of works by Mampu that has 20 pieces, I brought that up because I know a pianist. I interviewed a pianist who did that. He recorded all 20 of them, and he told me that, no, or was it a guitarist? Anyway. He told me that the record company specified to him, you can't just play 3 of these. You have to, if you're going to play these pieces, you have to play all 20 of those pieces, because no one else has done that. And what we're looking for is not picking and choosing. We're looking for the entire set. So that gave me a completionist mindset in terms of what I played, but it also has to do with the way I think about performing works of music in terms of a program and structuring a program around something, that I'm often looking for a set of things that give like the framework to the program. So I have a completionist mindset, but no, not with tarot. And it really is just random. I like this deck, I like that deck. Until somebody asked in a VR recently what publishers I like, I couldn't have told you that. And I'm kind of flummoxed by that question. Um, and then there are some creators that I really like, but I know I don't want everything that they make, so. And then there are other creators that I actually dislike fairly intensely, and yet I have one or two of their decks. So number 4, how do you store and organize your collection? I've said this in a previous video. My music room and teaching area for the harp and cello used to be my mother's teaching area, and she taught until she was 98. So it was only about not even a year ago that when it clicked that she's no longer using that room at all. And so I revamped that room to be my books, my music, and my tarot cards down there in that music room. And I'll probably include a picture here somewhere of that room. Down there, I have my my decks that are artist, like limited edition decks, decks that are study decks, and my Rider-Waite-Smith based decks. In a drawer in my bedroom, I have one drawer of an old antique bureau. I have all of my Tarot de Marseille and Oracle, Lenormand, Kipper playing cards, all of those. So you can already tell I have fewer of those. And then in this room is where I usually do my filming. And then, oh no, not usually, in this kind of a glamorous, relaxed way. This room is where I usually do my filming, and next to, I'm pointing over there to where I usually do it, I have my layout, and I have 25 decks maybe over there in an antique in and out box that had been my father's. I have the lower stack are kind of the basic decks, and then the upper stack is decks that I want handy because I want to work with them more. Either because I do work with them more or because I intentionally want them out to remind me to work with them. So that's how I store them, sort of all over. And then I have some decks on top of my bureau, which is where my altar space, and then 2 by my bed, sort of all over. What is the favorite thing about your, number 5, what is the favorite thing about your collection? The variety. I really do like variety. And just the fact of being able to have it, because when I grew up, it was so difficult to find any choice in a deck. So that, just gratitude for that. And what is my least favorite thing about my collection? Very much like Julie, not having the time to use it all. And, these feelings of that I'm neglecting one deck because I'm spending too much time with another. And also my aspirations of this austere simplicity where, kind of like a monk's cloister where there's just a bed and one chair and one deck of tarot cards forever and ever. Amen. That's sort of, that kind of stark simplicity is aspirational for me, but it's not who I am. It's not the way I live. So my least favorite thing about it is the extent of it, and which is why I'm joining in with so many people on Low Buy, No Buy, and it's why I'm going through and some culling of my decks as well. What is the biggest category? Now, I'm going to answer this a little differently from other people? What is the biggest category of your collection? My biggest category, I would say, is working decks, followed by art decks, and followed then by study decks, and that includes historical decks. Because my intention, no matter how many decks I have, is that they are decks that I'll actually work with and read with for myself and other people. Now, obviously, different people have talked about this, categorizing them in different ways. I'd say I have, by and far, more tarot decks than anything else because I am primarily a tarot reader. I have, it's probably 3-to-1 Rider-Waite-Smith based to Tarot de Marseille or hybrid. I kind of lump them together. And then Oracle decks are rising up to, I have almost as many of them as I have of Tarot de Marseille. And that's, I feel like I'm, as much as there are beautiful new Oracle decks coming up, I'm sort of feeling topped out on Oracle decks because I don't use them as much. And, oh, so I just answered the next question. What is the smallest category? Well, no, the smallest category would be playing cards and Lenormand and Kipper. I think I have about, including Kipper, I have 6 Lenormand decks, and then I have 2 decks of playing cards that I read with. And dominoes. Dominoes would be my smallest group because I read with the dominoes, and that I inherited from my father. And for anybody who's interested, I did do a how I read with dominoes video. The next question, number 9. Do you have a holy grail in your collection? Again, this, I'm not quite sure what the definition is that's being assigned to this holy grail is, so I'll have to define that, won't I? So for me, one of the things that came to mind is I just got one of my holy grail decks. I have been wanting the large size Tarot of the Cloisters. When you go on eBay, you can find the mini all over the place, but the large size has been very hard to find. And I think it was like a week before Christmas, I was looking at something and this popped up, and they didn't say what size it was. They didn't have anything but for some reason I thought that might be the large one. And I contacted the person. I said, is this the small one or the large one? And I gave them dimensions and they said, yes, it's the large one. And so click immediately, because I've been wanting this for 2 years. Since I started collecting, and it's that hard to find in this size, and I'm so happy that I have it. It's totally easy to read, and I like round decks because I like being able to turn them as I read. Now there are some other things that I would consider a holy grail deck. The Splendor Soulless Tarot is a deck that I was aware of when it was an academic publication. And I really liked everything about it, everything about the publication. What is it? It is a deck based on the historical book Splendor Soulless, taking these images from the illuminations of the book. I might be getting some of this a little wrong, but so I was aware of it, but it was very expensive, and I thought, oh well, you know, it's on the wish list, but it may be on there forever. Because it's a study deck, I may never really feel that I can read with it. And you know, a lot of people will get, really like this, extremely esoteric study decks, and then just kind of mash them into Rider-Waite-Smith system and read them that way. And, you know, if that floats your boat and that makes you happy, that's great. But for me, when I get a deck like this, that I still am keeping the plastic band on, I really do want to take the time to study it. And I don't care if it sits on my shelf for 5 years, 10 years, because I know then I have it to be able to study it. Well, to bring this up to date, it went mass market. And the mass market production is magnificent. Now, I think the book is smaller because the book was reduced to fit in here. But the cards are large size cards, which I like. I think the cards remain the same size as they had been in the academic production. And it's just an incredible, incredible work of research and historical research and esoteric and religious research that all goes together in this. And so when I saw that this was available mass market, I didn't get it right away because I was leery that it might not be as nice. And I kind of went back and forth between the academic site and the mass market and realized, and I've been blown away. They reduced the size of the book and perhaps took some stuff out of the book. I don't know, but the book is still chunky, and it's just, I feel very fortunate to have that. And then the last one that I consider to be a Holy Grail deck is just a deck that I really loved when I got it. It's from South Korea. It's the Muse Cat Tarot. It is now out of print, although there is a second printing now, but I'll address that in a minute. So I got the first version, and which I adore. Gorgeous backs, the prettiest backs of any of my decks. It's a cat deck. It's a cat deck with cats acting like humans, which I don't even usually like, but so well done in being faithful to the Rider-Waite-Smith. And so it's just magnificently easy to read. The book is in Korean, South Korean only, and so I got this from a South Korean online company, and I now follow the artist online. And she's coming out with a second edition, but it's changed. She's changing it significantly, including changing the backs to something I don't like as much. So I just feel really happy that I was able to get this when it was available. And because it's now, and it's a deck that I use and I really enjoy using, I don't know that I'd take it out to a fair because of the irreplaceability issue now, but you know, it wasn't a big deal when it was out, so I don't know that there are a whole lot of collectors looking for it. So it may only be a holy grail to me, but it is to me. Number 10, do you ever wish your collection was bigger, smaller, more complete? I never intended to be a collector. I just liked having the variety to read with. As I said, I do wish it was smaller. In theory, I was having this conversation with myself and thinking about doing this video, and I thought, again, with that austerity of living, you know, with a cot and a chair and a plain white room with, you know, one deck. But then I realized, wait a minute, I had that. Whether it was through choice or because of lack of availability, I had only one deck for 40 years. Um, and, and so I did have that. I know what it's like. And I didn't read very much when I had only one deck. And now that I have a great variety of decks, I'm taking it much more seriously, and I read all the time now, and both for myself and other people. And so I'm not sure what that dynamic is. Is it that my interest grew at the same time that more was available, or did the variety mean that I didn't get bored? Because I do have a boredom issue. And so, which came first, chicken or the egg? So, but I still do think, okay, I need to get rid of some of this, and I need to pare it down. But one of the things that I think is the way I mentioned that I think about them is that I have decks that I think of as party decks. It's like they're in a specific box, and it's like if I'm going to go read at a party, I take those decks. I don't really use them for anything else. They're not even necessarily decks that I like, but they're easy to read, they're straightforward, and they have a great deal of visual variety to connect with a lot of different people in that kind of a setting. I have a different group of decks that I would take out to a fair or to a coffee house. And then I have the decks that I think of as study decks. And again, they may sit there for 10 years and without me touching them, and that's fine. So my Solabusca, I've had for 2 years now, and it's still in a plastic wrapper. I don't intend to work with that really ever, and I only intend to open it up and study it when I have time to, I know I have time to sit down and study with the books that I have about it. So things that are for dedicated study, that's for when I have time for dedicated study. So 11, how often do you declutter? It's kind of like what Julie said. I don't just declutter. Decluttering is a way of life. It's like cleaning, that if you keep things tidy, you really don't have to do a big cleaning occasionally. And that applies to my decks as well. I sort of, maybe every week, every other week, I have sort of an organization. But when I do a video, a VR that has a lot of decks, that in itself becomes sort of a tidying process because I have to pull a lot out and put them back. And so it's an ongoing thing, and I don't necessarily have a big, and then I have things that I set aside knowing I want to sell them. I now have a small suitcase that I know I want to put those things up on eBay, and then it's a matter of when I have time to post them on eBay, because you have to go through the process of posting them. Number 12, do you ever get envious seeing other collections? No. I'm not envious of collections because my intention was never to be a collector. There may be individual decks where I think, oh, I wish I could have that. But that usually fades pretty much for me. Oh, that would go back to the Holy Grail. I used to have a unicorn deck. For me was Majestic Earth. But since I found the Sublime Thresholds, I don't feel that pull anymore. And then my big Holy Grail would be the Kickstarter version of Forager's Daughter. Any of you who watch me know that I adore the Forager's Daughter deck and use it a lot. And the Kickstarter version had different color borders for each suit. And that's something that I just happen to really like. So that Kickstarter version of Forager's Daughter remains on my unicorn list and would be a Holy Grail. Number 13, who on YouTube has the best collection? I really had to think about this because how do you define best collection? Certainly Simon at the Hermit's Cave has a huge collection. To my mind, huge. I mean, it's all relative. Um, Mervat, Egyptian mystic, uh, seems to have an endless collection. And I do enjoy watching her videos. I don't watch as many debt collection videos now as I used to, because I can't. I don't have enough willpower. Um, it's dangerous. It's an addiction. So who else? Tammy Pie has, uh, and she has, what did they call it? Completion. She's a real completionist too. So it's interesting for me to watch that, but it's not what I want. And very interestingly, I just mentioned the other day, I used to think, watching some of these people that get sent copies of things, I used to think, oh, I wish somebody would send me copies. And I have realized, I don't want it because I'd be stuck with a whole lot of decks that I have no interest in. And I'd say there are a lot of decks out there that, I mean, Tammy Pie and I joked about this. It's wonderful when you watch a deck opening video and you think, I don't want that. It's like, I'm happy for them. I'm glad they're tickled, but I have no interest in that deck. And that gives me such joy now because it's like, whew, it's one I don't want on any of my lists. So, oh, let me back up and say, I mean no disrespect to any of my other friends that I regularly watch about your collections by mentioning those three people. No disrespect meant to you or to your collection. It may be that our interactions are not necessarily collection based. Thinking of that, I just think Musings by Masha with her historical deck collection. She has a very large collection, and a lot of it is my taste because of my interest in historical things, but then a lot of it isn't. So no disrespect to, it's always interesting when I find someone who likes a lot of the same things I like, but then there are always going to be things that they like that I don't, and vice versa. And number 14, advice you would give a future or new deck collector. And I agree with what a lot of the other people have said to this, but I also realized, and it had to do with a reading that I did today, which was about being aware, and it was about taking in, I mean, if you go to my reading of the day, you'll see these trends in that reading. It was about communication, knowing what's going on, being aware. So my big advice would be aware. And it's not even, I think a lot of us go through a period of time where I just want them all. And then you realize, no, I don't want them all. And just as a harpist, I have to be aware there are only so many hours in the day. There are only so many years in your life. There are only so many pieces you can play. So I've always been aware that each piece I learned potentially is all of that time that I work on learning that piece is time I cannot devote to another piece that I might want to play. So I've tried to be really, because I came to playing the harp late, I tried to be very selective in making sure that if I'm spending my time on a piece of music, it's something I really want to play. And there are pieces I might really like, but I get to working on them and I'm like, I don't like this enough to spend this much time on it. Not when there's this other piece that I do like more. And so I have dropped some major pieces kind of halfway or 2/3 of the way through working on them, because I realized what it would take to get it polished is not, would not be worth it to me. And I think the same thing with a collection or a group of cards or a library, is that just not only be aware, but keep adding to your awareness. As you add new decks in, be aware of the pluses and minuses of that deck in relationship to what you have. And I think if you keep your awareness as you're bringing things in, it can make you much more selective on the front end, so that you don't have disappointments on, you don't have buyer's remorse. Because I have to say, I think I've only had, well, that little suitcase full, that little suitcase of buyer's remorse. I will now have to refer to that as my suitcase of buyer's remorse. Fortunately, it's a cosmetics case. It's not very big. But my suitcase of buyer's remorse. And I'd say that might be 10 decks out of 200. So 5%. 5%. And that's of only the tarot decks. So if I included all of the oracle decks too, it would be less than 5%. That's still probably too high. Some of them I could have, if I'd spent a little more time before buying them, I would have realized, yeah, I have something else similar that I like better, and I don't want to take the time away from it. And so that, again, awareness. So just be, and of course, I mean, do I even have to say, be honest with yourself? I mean, I guess some people have an issue with that, as I don't usually have an issue with that. So, so with that honesty with yourself about how you're really going to use something, and whether you're going to use something, and is it just going to sit on the shelf for 10 years as a study deck? Is that okay? If it is, then that's okay. But just be aware of what you're doing, and you know, if you have the wherewithal to spend it or not, and all of those things. And gratitude, constant gratitude. With the times that we're living in now, when you think, okay, no matter how many cards you have, no matter how you have it arranged in your home, all these questions that we've just asked, the people in Ukraine had that until their home was bombed. The people in Gaza had that until their homes and their neighborhoods and their country was destroyed. There are other people in other places in the world that, you know, they thought they had security. Here now in our country, we don't know from day to day what kind of crazy things going to go on. So to be uncomfortably lounging on this daybed in a house that's fairly remote in the woods is a very privileged position to be in. And to have these decks, and to be able to make a video about deck collecting. You know, this is all gravy. And that, I guess that would come down to awareness too, but awareness of your blessings, gratitude for our blessings, and which includes the community, this wonderful supportive community on TarotTube. Just gratitude. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here with me, and thank you for hearing all of that, the good, the bad, and the sanguine.